Welcome to the Master Your Mindset and Metabolism podcast. I'm your host, Kelly Dunlap, creator of kellydunlap.com. I am a mindset and metabolism specialist who helps women reprioritize their health, balance their hormones, and reboot their metabolism so they can regain their energy, finally lose the weight, and feel confident in their own skin. I help women break up with the start-over syndrome, all or nothing mindset, get them off the diet wagon so they can create a consistent plan for a sustainable, healthy lifestyle free of diets. In this podcast, we will talk about all the things mindset, metabolism, the role our hormones play in all of this, and how to reboot your mindset and metabolism so you can finally step into your new empowered life. Thank you so much for being here and pressing play. Now let's begin. Hey friends, Kelly here. I'm so excited because my dear friend Tabitha Goldsmith is with us today. She's an amazing human. She's a life and health coach. She's a mom of 8, and she is a bodybuilding enthusiast. She is literally just a woman of many, many hats, and she's super awesome. And I'm so excited to have her here today. So thank you so much for being here.
Thanks for having me. I was excited to talk with you.
Yeah,
I always enjoy our chats.
Yes, we know. We've been going back and forth. Here's a little background. She and I had met in a mastermind together, and that just kind of happens. You kind of gravitate towards people, and she and I gravitated towards one another, and we were chatting, and we actually live in Michigan. We live in the same state, and we had been messaging. I was like, you know what? I want to do a podcast, and I think everybody knows that I just love to have gab conversations. I like to gab, you know, and the common question people will say is, well, are there any questions or anything? Like, no, because to me, it takes out the authenticity, you know?
Yeah, I like that though. I like
chat and gab and whatever flows. I think another term is called riff, just riff.
I don't know if I've heard that, but I like it.
I guess I just riff. So that's what I've been told lately. It's like, oh, okay, you just like to do a good riff. I'm like, yeah, that's exactly what I like to do. So anyway, here we are. And Tabitha has a coaching business like I, and she helps purpose-driven women to create results without giving up the things that they love, and especially women who struggle with the all or nothing mindset. Yes, exactly. And her coaching business is called Fit with Grace. So I would love to dive in a little bit about where your journey began and all of this. You know, when did you start to do, find the love for the fitness and the competitions and things like that? You know, for me, it started at, 14 in the living room doing crystal light videos with Michelle LeMay.
Oh my God. It's so funny. I can completely relate. I feel like I like to say God puts passions in us, and we just kind of get to learn through it. We don't always do it right or the way we should or think we should, but there's lessons to be learned along the way. So where did it start? Okay, I'm going to share a really funny story. It wasn't funny at the time though, and I have a kiddo in 6th grade. And so I think of his age right now, but I remember when I was in 6th grade, my sister and I were always a little chubby, but she was my younger sister, but she was even bigger than I was. So in my head, I'm like, I didn't think anything of it. I wasn't really chubby. I didn't think I was until in 6th grade when I wouldn't kiss a boy. And so he started calling me Big Bertha. He is a dear friend of mine. He was at my wedding, but he was a popular boy. So then everybody started calling me Big Bertha, and my life crumbled when I was in 6th grade for a couple months. You know, we get into that headspace of like, oh, the world is ending. I'm being teased. And I remember my stepdad saying, well, I mean, if you want to get healthier, if you want to feel better, let's start running together or walking around the block. And it was just that simple, non-pressure filled suggestion without the criticism or judgment that brought me to this place of like, oh, that's kind of cool. And now I feel empowered. I used to not be able to get around the whole block, and now I ran the whole block. And so it started there. And I was an athlete, always played all the sports, and was a varsity volleyball player from freshman year on, and softball and basketball, and did all the things. But my passion for health and fitness grew. So I had no idea until that point. And then I started to really absorb all of the knowledge. So all the Shape and Oxygen and Muscle and Fitness magazines. I would subscribe to all of them. I didn't want the 17. I wanted the Oxygen, like Monica Brandt on the cover. Give it to me.
Ah, the 17 magazine. Is that magazine even still around? Do magazines?
I know. I think they do, though. I think they do. Yeah.
That is so funny. So I love how it was just that little suggestion that changed everything. And it was kind of like, for me, my struggle was a little different in the sense that I was struggling with substance, with alcohol at the time at 14. And my dad was like, what can we do? We tried counseling. We tried this outpatient rehab. We tried a lot of things. And I had this thought, it was a nudge, right? It's kind of like the nudges we get now.
Yep.
It was just a nudge. And I said, you know what, Dad, what about Fitness USA? What about a membership at Fitness USA? Do you remember those gyms? Did you have Fitness USA?
Those are big box gyms. Yeah. They're the big ones.
Fitness USA. And it was with these chain and all that. And so that's what it was for me. And that's where it all started. It's just that one little thing, but I listened, we listened to those nudges, which is amazing.
Yes.
So you were around sixth grade, and then was it sixth grade? And you started to do the block.
In sixth grade, it kind of grew through high school. In college, I knew exactly. I went to CMU. I wanted to go there for health and fitness. So at 18, I was in college, but started teaching group fitness for Central. I teaching the group fitness classes. I got certified, and by the end of my freshman year, I was going into people's homes in Mount Pleasant and training them in their homes. So, and I loved that. I thought, this is incredible. I'm going to work for $7 an hour, or I can go into somebody's home. And I think when I started, I was charging $35 an hour when I first started going into somebody's home. But I thought that was incredible because the minimum wage was $7 an hour. So always a bit of entrepreneurial flair. And that also was college. My sophomore year was when I was introduced to bodybuilding. And so that just kind of grew another passion inside of me.
That was my next question, was when did it evolve into the bodybuilding piece? Because I think a lot of women, we do have this, we desire the body. We desire that. And most women don't realize, they think that you achieve that through cardio, right? And they don't realize the hard work, the dedication, the growth, the time, that it literally is like a full-time job, and that when it comes to that, it's like, it really is, to me, I look at it as a sport, a lifestyle, a community. It's a totally different way of being and doing. And I think that is so truly admired. It truly is, because there's so much dedication. But here's my question: when it comes to that life, and when you're in that phase, because let's face it, it's a phase, there are restrictions.
Life.
And so where for me, that was always something, I could never do that. I think I could do it now if I really wanted to. But back in the day, I wasn't willing to give up my alcohol. I wasn't willing to give up all of those things, right? Because that was necessary for a phase, but we don't realize that it's just a season, and that you have to be comfortable with the fluctuations of the weight, right? Because that's what happens, right? You got to go into these ins and outs. And so I guess I think you kind of know where I'm going with this, is that how do you find the balance with that type of, thank you. Yeah, exactly. Without it turning into that extreme all or nothing, because that's really that fine line. And I'm sure that's one of the reasons why you coach a lot on it, because you've mastered it.
Very much. And I haven't mastered it. I coach on it because I get to practice it every day. And bodybuilding is one of the best examples for me to practice what I preach.
And it behaviors.
Yeah. I mean, and there are seasons where just like anything in life, if we want something, we get to decide. I think it's all perspective. And this is where I tie in the mindset component of the work with my clients is it's all around empowered decisions. So when we think I couldn't do that because I'd have to give up X, Y, and Z, we take our power away, right? Instead of being like, well, what's possible? Could it be possible? Like, what would it look like? How could we become more curious about that and maybe talk to somebody? Has anybody else ever done this with kids, balance this lifestyle with kids? Is that possible? Because I did it in college and circling back to kind of that nudge you had talked about, it's the same with my stepdad. It was really just, I didn't see what was possible within me until he suggested it from a place of love. And it was kind of the same way with bodybuilding when I saw a friend of mine and she was a bodybuilder and I thought her physique was amazing, but I never thought I could do it. And she just with such confidence, of course you could. Yeah, of course. I'll show you. And it was just no big deal. And I thought, really? And so, and you learn through every stage, right? The division that I do now is the bikini division, which is in bodybuilding, the bodybuilding world. It is what would be considered the softest, most feminine, but at the national level, they're ripped. I mean, they're still shredded. It's still challenging. The majority, I don't want to say the majority. Through NPC, a lot of the women, even in my division, are not natural athletes. They're assistants. So meaning steroids are very, very common. I am a natural athlete. And that's just my personal choice. Some of my closest friends are not, and that's okay. They still have to work their butt off. But for me, anytime that I recognized that the possibility was there, and if I had the passion within myself, I just wanted to try. And I'm not really a perfectionistic person. I say I built my business and I really built my life on messy action. Like, let's just jump in. What's the worst thing? Like, God led us here and I use that. It serves me well. I don't know everybody's beliefs are a little bit different, but for me, just to consider like I'm here with purpose. So why not go for it? And whether I get the result or I get the lesson I need, either way, I'm moving forward. So with bodybuilding, it's the same thing. As a college athlete, I did it very differently than I do as a mom of 8 children now. And I'd like to think that I do it better now. I mean, and we continue to learn.
Yeah. I love how you said you get the result or the lesson that you need, because that is so good. And it's so true. And something that I think all of us need to always keep in mind is that you're going to get the result of the lesson. It's a win-win. Like there's no losing here,
Yeah.
Speaking of, well, first of all, before I move forward, I really enjoyed watching your journey. And I think it was, you did like back-to-back shows within this last year. Was it 2 or 3 of them or something?
Yep. I did 3 of them in the fall.
3, which was crazy. It was fun. And you know what I really appreciated about you? And I think I had shared this with you was, it was like no big deal in the sense of, I'm just going to do my own self tanner. I'm going to do my own makeup, my own hair. Like it was just so natural. And it wasn't like, I got to get my spray tan from, da company. And so-and-so's got to do my hair. You were just like, I'm showing up and you fucking killed it. Like every show you were like either first or second or, like, you just did your best the whole time. And then you're just like, I'm just, going with the flow and just doing my thing. And I'm just going to be me. And I was just like, I loved seeing that authenticity and just how it was like, no big deal. You know what I mean? Like, I don't know. I can't, because whenever I categorize these, because I've been seeing these like for years throughout my life. My first true big box gym outside of Fitness Show, because Fitness Show is like women one day, men another day, was Powerhouse Gym, and it was around like Linda Murray, if you remember her, back in the day.
Her shows are she still has her shows in August, I think. Yeah.
So crazy. Right. And so when I would see this, I mean, I could clearly see that it was just a different life and a different way of being and things. And so it was really cool to see that you just put a different lens on it for me.
That's exactly. And I really do think this is with anything in life. It is our perspective. I hadn't competed. I was terrified to compete again. The last time I competed was 5 years ago. I did nationals. I did well. I wanted to go for my pro card, but then we started foster care a month later after my last national show. And then I pulled a hamstring, and then a baby came, and then another baby came, and then another kid. So it just was a season that God was like, nope, not your time. So 5 years later, here I am in a different stage, and I chickened out all year last year until finally my bodybuilding coach was like, well, we missed all the national runs, so we might as well just hold out for next year. And I remember the decision for myself was like, no, I need to prove to myself. I need to get my feet back under me. I've basically given up on myself. Not that I couldn't do it. I was so close, but it was that fear of holding myself back. And so I really did go into it with that lens of like, what happens is exactly what's supposed to happen. And it was that messy action. I've used the tanning vendors, but I also want to, and I've done it myself before. Maybe 8 years ago, it was terrible. So I used the vendors, but then things had improved. So I was like, I'll do it myself. I'll paint my own toenails in my bathroom the morning of the show. I'll do my hair and makeup because I knew that I could do that. I've done it before, but if that meant a first place or a third place, so be it. I knew I needed to get back up there, and I needed to do it in the least stressful way possible. And for me, that was just without an expectation, but just knowing that I'm doing my best and why I was of course we all want to win. I'm naturally competitive, but I just needed to get back up there. So it was,
you killed
really
it. Fun. You really did. Like
I did do great. I qualified. I got first. They're a little different. So different divisions. Every show I took first in 1 to 2 divisions. And then on a couple of the shows, I got second or third based on who else was there. So there's open, which is everybody. So all age groups, all natural, not natural. So it just depends on who showed up. And the people that took first or second over top of me in those other divisions, they deserved it. Like they looked incredible. So it's just fun to see. It just depends on who shows up. The goal for me is always to come in my very best. And so I'll be competing again in 3 months in New Jersey. And the goal is to show up better than I did last season. So we'll see.
Cool. And so like right now you're in, what would this be called? An off season for you? So like,
I'm in prep. I just started, well, technically I started a month ago, but I don't feel like it because my coach has my food really high, which most girls think that's awesome, except you don't need to gain it. This is a whole different off topic. But I think it's important for people because if you have been, so going back to college, when I first started bodybuilding, that's when I really got into weight training and I loved it. I had always been a runner before that, a distance runner, marathon runner, because running burns a lot of calories, right? So when you think you're the chubby fat girl in middle school, you just start running and that feels good. And there's purpose in that. But I was introduced to weight training. And so I had been training for over 20 years. So I have a good amount of muscle maturity. If you take somebody who is just starting out and has never really trained, they're going to gain muscle quickly, and they might need to be in more of a surplus and gain a little more fat mass. I didn't need to gain as much as I did over the holidays. I mean, my weight is up like 25 pounds right now, but it is what it is. Like it'll come off. I enjoyed the holidays. I still follow my plan, but your hunger cues are, I was in prep all year. Your hunger cues are not, I'm really big on following those cues, intuitive eating with some support and structure. So my food approach with my clients, I call it a flexible food strategy, but we take the basics of tapping into your hunger cues, learning your body, basically eating when you're hungry, stopping before you're full, fueling with plants and proteins first, like really basic stuff. But when you're coming out of a deficit for so long, your body's hungry. And so, and I knew I was gaining weight, but I was like managing my mind through it so well, I was okay with it. And until now, I'm like, I want my coach to drop my food and he won't. So
you're like, I'm ready now.
Yeah. I keep telling him, like, dude, we need to drop. The weeks are ticking. He's like, you're good. I know how your body's going to respond. We're good. Like,
yeah, he just already knows. That's so good. I remember one post you had made, you like, I'm feeling flat, like just because you were so it was probably right before a show and you were probably depleting of the water, things like that. So I remember you're like, oh, I'm feeling flat. And that was interesting because I was like, God, that really is truly there's such a contrast in like game day versus like what you look like there, because people don't realize like you don't look like that on the daily. That's just for that moment, for those few hours, and then you go and you eat.
It's crazy.
So I don't know a whole lot about the whole sport. I just kind of know enough to kind of have a general understanding. I just thought it was pretty cool to watch your journey, and I was so excited for you. Like, I just couldn't wait for you to like post your results. Then it's like, okay, where'd she place? I'm watching,
It's so fun, and people are the best cheerleaders. So yeah, it's fun.
Yeah, it was really, really cool. So you had touched on, which I'm very, very curious about this. And I'm sure, you probably get this question a lot. What led you into the foster care? And you have 8 children.
Yeah. Yep. We have 8 kiddos. Wow. So, I keep bringing up God, but I feel like I plant those seeds. And before my husband and I before we were married, technically, we were engaged. We lived out in Phoenix. And I was on a ride along with somebody from work, and he just happened to I asked questions, and him and his wife, they were a younger couple in their early to mid 20s, married, but they were foster parents, and they wanted to be foster parents before they had biological kids. And he shared their story of doing foster care. And I was so clueless. I mean, I didn't know there was a need in our backyard. So he gave me this website when we lived out in Phoenix, and I looked it up. And in Michigan, it's mare.org, MARE.org, but it's essentially kids who need permanent homes. So I remember sitting at my computer in Arizona after work that day, sobbing. And I telling my husband, we need to do this. Like, we need to.
Yeah.
It was, it's like 5-year-old. They don't write it up the same way now, but it was basically their voice, their message. Like, I'm really good at math. I love soccer. I hope my new family has a dog, and I promise to keep my bedroom cleaned. Or, these kids were young and trying to sell themselves to find a permanent home. So that was really touching to me. And then we got married, and we got pregnant right away, and we had our first son. And then I was pregnant 6 months later with our second son, who ended up being born with Down syndrome. And that was a whole different ball game of unexpected curveballs. So he was in and out of the hospital for 2 years with heart surgeries, and we didn't know if he was going to make it or not at different points. So that was a different season of life that, looking back, it was really a building of trust of like, I've got you. Like, this is preparing you. You're learning to trust. You're learning patience, and surrender, really. And then we had our third son a couple years later. So we had 3 really quickly. And the foster care piece was still always on my heart. But after 3 boys at the time, my husband was not as eager. So I just had to kind of And he finally said, when we just had 3 boys, okay, we can have 1 more kid. That's all I can handle. If you want to go to China and adopt a little girl, if you want to do foster care. And he was like, yeah, we could do foster. Why do you want to foster? Like, sure. Or we could just have 1 more biological. And he gave me the okay across the board. And so that day I had to sign up for foster care. So we got licensed, took in our first placement, and then I was pregnant with our 4th son. So, excuse me. So anyway, God's just funny like that.
You ended up getting pregnant, and is, I didn't like, but it was just like, oh my God, like, you got the permission, and there we go. Like, it all came, So I didn't realize that out of your 8, that some of them are biological.
Yep. 4.
All of them were fostered for some reason.
Yeah. I know a lot of people think that, and a lot of people think my son with Down syndrome is adopted. I think because you look at our family picture, and the ones that don't quite look like us are the adopted kids. But my youngest 2, we had 4 biological, and then we took in my first daughter, I have two girls, Camberlyn, she was 20 months old at the time. That was when we had 4 boys now. Our first placement went home. Now we have our new baby, and we took a couple years off. Then we opened our doors again, and my daughter came at 20 months old. A couple months later, her half brother was born. So she's mixed. Her dad's Black. So she is beautiful brown skin, and her half brother is blonde hair, blue eyed, because same mom, different dad. So he was born, and then a year later, baby sister was born. So she also blonde hair, blue eyed. Same mom and dad for those two, but share a mom with my brown daughter. So they're all intertwined.
Interesting. So they're okay. Yeah. So they're not all okay. Got you.
So they're not all the same moms and dads. It's just, I mean, it's pretty common in foster care for things to be connected.
But you do have siblings, which is kind of cool that they have. Okay.
Yeah. So they're all related, and we have a relationship with their biological mom and dad for the younger two. But they just weren't able to get it together. Rights were terminated. It went to adoption. It was going to adoption. And then the agency said, hey, like, we have one more little boy. He's older. He was 7 at the time, but he needs an adoptive home. Would you be able to temporarily take him until we can find him an adoptive home? And also it's Camberlyn's half brother. So shared a dad. So they had never met, but they had the same dad. So we ended up bringing him in. It was going to be a temporary thing, but it obviously was not. So that's what kind of made us our family of 8 kiddos. So Ethan came, and him and Camber have the same dad. She shares a mom with the younger 2, and that makes up our crew, 4 years old to 14.
I was just going to ask you, what's the oldest and youngest? So there we go. That's perfect. Yeah. Oh my gosh, that's just crazy. Patience, lots of patience.
And I think God knew I just needed to learn that over and over again. And I still have to practice it every day.
Amazing. As we all do. There is no question there. So with your purpose driven women with grace, what do you think is one of the biggest challenges that a lot of these women have that come to you? Like when they come to you, they want one thing, but then you're like, oh, let me just show you the light. Let me show you what it is that you really need, So what do you think that the most common thing is with your guys? Do you do women or just women? Just women.
So that's interesting. I primarily, I guess, would market to women, but I do have men in my group. So something unique that I offer, because I just think it's so valuable as a whole, is buy one, get one free for spouses, or even I do that for teens in the home. So mom and daughter, or I've had mom and son. So I do buy one, get one free only because they're in the same home.
In the family. That's brilliant. Cool.
Yeah. And a lot of the work that I do, the third pillar of my program is the mind management system. And we talk a lot about relationships. Like what brought me to life coaching was not fitness. It was feeling better about a relationship in my life that I thought should be a certain way. And so it was impacting me deeply. And through COVID, through quarantine, it was impacting me in a way like I felt like I should be supported differently by this person, not my husband, but it was a family member. And it was really impacting because of the tension and what I felt like was lack of love and support and of what should be normal or should be there for maybe a parent-child relationship. It wasn't. But because I was so heavy-hearted about that, it really was impacting my food and drink choices. So during quarantine, we're not going anywhere. And so we just would bake every single day. No big deal, except I found myself like overeating the baking and then making afternoon margaritas and pouring a glass of wine for dinner prep. But dinner prep kept getting earlier and earlier. And it's like, these are not healthy patterns. And it stemmed from my thoughts about this expectation of a relationship I had in my life that should be a certain way. Mm-hmm. And it was really powerful. I mean, the coaching that I received during that season changed my life, and I knew my clients needed it. So I offer buy one, get one free because I know that if they're invested, it will change their relationship. And not only with each other, but ultimately what they come to me for, which is health and fitness. Like, I want to lose weight. I got to exercise more and eat less. Like, show me how to do it. Slap the food out of my hand. which is not what I do. I actually empower you. You can eat all the food you want. You want to eat that whole bag of Doritos? You could do that. Go for it. Why do you not want to do that? Like maybe you always ate the whole bag. You couldn't stop yourself. I have a client who she came to me and it was very, I can't have chips in the house. I'll eat the entire bag of chips. So that example came to mind. Now she's been with me for over a year. She's been in my mastermind for a long time. She's down not quite 20 pounds and just kind of maintaining, but her whole perspective of herself and her relationship with food is very, very different. Her relationship, she's a high performing, she's in healthcare. She's an executive over a hospital here in Michigan, and her relationship with her employees and her staff is so different because she had learned these tools to take ownership in her choices. And that's ultimately what I do with people. I teach them how to lead themselves so they feel empowered. And if that means you want to eat the chips, eat the chips. If that means you're not going to eat the chips because you think it's really cool to have a couple or not have any because you feel really good and you're excited about your progress, that's great too.
Yeah. It's so true because they, again, there's that shame that comes around, and it's like, oh, I'm so shamed because I ate the chips. And it's like, so what? If you ate the chips, big deal.
Wanted the chips. and often those chips are just a buffer in between the negative emotion we don't want to deal with and ourselves. We do that naturally. And it's a very self-protective mechanism that we are all wired, our brain's wired to keep us safe and comfortable and protect us. But when we learn to recognize and have that awareness of the thoughts that impact our actions and how we feel, then we get to become more empowered in our choices. And then we build up that belief and wow, that wasn't even like there was a whole bag of chips there. I didn't even want any, or I had a couple and I was good. That's never happened before. It's like you build up momentum. Yeah. Yeah. So
evidence you can do this, which is amazing. And so life-changing, for so many people. It really is absolutely life-changing, which is crazy. So let me ask you this question too, because you probably get asked this quite a bit. How do you do it all?
Oh gosh.
I don't.
Yeah.
Do it all. I just know you're so busy. And how do you, because that's
you get that.
I do.
That too. Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah.
Go ahead.
No. But it's kind of like, well, you grow there. But I think why people are just so, it's almost like they shake their head like, I am just so, and I've learned to recognize, excuse me, I don't know why I keep having to clear my throat, but I learned to recognize that people will look at, let's say our lives, for example, gosh, she does this, and this, and they find it to be almost like completely impossible or out of reach because they are so stressed out that their brain is perceiving it as so much more, as so ungodly overwhelming just because of their state and when their state of mind, and they're constantly in that fight or flight. So of course their brain is going to perceive things differently. And that's what I've recently come to like figure out and realize is like, that's part of it. And so then what do? I can't ever do what she does because of that continuous state of that fight or flight. Right.
Yeah. That's so interesting you say that because it makes complete sense. And all of our brains do this. All our human brain, and we only use like 10% of our brain to begin with, but it's all wired for all or nothing because it's created to keep us alive. So I would say the brain's motivated to seek pleasure, avoid pain, and conserve energy. All three of those things are going to swing you to the all or nothing. So in the moment when you see somebody else, and I've been here before too, although I really take a lens like I don't, and I know this isn't probably as common, but I don't really compare in a sense of like, oh, like I couldn't do that because, or it's not a negative thing. When I see somebody else doing really cool, big things, I want to learn more. Like that's possible. Tell me how. It creates possibility within me. But most people will have a thought, like you said, my life is already overwhelming and stressful. I don't know how I have 2 kids and it's so overwhelming and stressful. But as soon as we have that thought, our brain is wired to prove it true. Our brain is designed to find the evidence that will back that thought up because it feels safe to us.
Yes,
even if it's not what we want.
System, I believe is what it's called. The RAS.
What's it called?
Reticular activating system.
Oh, yeah.
Collecting evidence, whether you believe it or like it'll prove to you whatever it is that you're believing.
Yes. It's so powerful when you become aware of that in your own life. And I say we all kind of have this like Rolodex file, if people know what that is still, that like spinny thing with the numbers. But we all have these Rolodex files of evidence. For example, I had this morning with my 14-year-old teenager. He's a teenager, darn it, and his job is to do whatever he wants. You know what I mean? Like he's wired. He can only see himself a lot of the time, not always, but my brain, if I'm not careful, will often find the evidence. He will do something, peeing all over the toilet seat and not lifting it up, peeing all over the floor, right? My other kids can lift it up. Why can't he? I go in to sit down. Wouldn't you know?
Oh my God. I think we're living in the same house.
Oh,
I get so mad. Oh.
Yes. And all of my other kids, this is where my brain collects evidence, and people do this with fitness and we do this with everything. But this is just the example that was on my mind from literally this morning and yesterday, where I come out of the bathroom and I'm like, you get to clean the toilet. You get to clean the bathroom now. That's the rule we set. If you don't wipe up the pee and I sit on he walked out, I walked in, but my brain finds evidence of, you only care about yourself. You're being selfish. You're being lazy. My brain is looking for evidence of that. But he came home from school. We had this moment yesterday morning, and then he came home from school, and knowing myself and how I want to show up as a mom versus how I react sometimes. It wasn't like a big reaction, but still I wanted to handle that a little differently. I basically gave him all my power, right? So I was frustrated in that moment. He peed on the seat. Maybe I should just expect that he's going to, and then come out of the bathroom and be like, sweet, thanks for cleaning my bathroom, because that's what we agreed on when you pee on the toilet seat. So here's the cleaning supplies. Do it now or do it after school. I don't care. It's all good. But instead, I had to really dig it in. Like, you're being so selfish. Why can everybody else wipe up the toilet seat or lift it? It's not that hard. I'm like trying to shame him in that moment about something little. So he came up from school and I was like, hey, dude, it is annoying when you pee all over the seat, but I get it. You're a teenager. You're tired in the morning. If you feel like you need to pee on the seat, so be it. But thanks for cleaning up my bathroom. Sorry, I got irritated with you. And his response it was really good for my heart. And he's like, no, Mom. He's like, I can lift the toilet seat up. That's my bad. And I was like, oh, thank you.
I love this. It is such a this story is brilliant because this is so relatable. This is so relatable for people to say, now I understand. Okay. Like maybe people have heard me say, okay, Kelly, I've heard you say that your brain's going to collect evidence and find it as a reticular activating system. But some people need to hear this story. They need to hear the story like this. It's like, okay, now I get it. My brain is actually saying, but wait, Susie and Sally and Johnny and everybody, that's the evidence that's providing me that, yes, you are capable of doing this. So why aren't you? You know what I mean? So it makes so much sense to share it in that way because it is so relatable, because I cannot tell you how many times I've sat in Colin's pee.
Oh my gosh.
But I like your rule. And I think I'm going to start telling him that.
Thanks for volunteering. That's like, you put your name on the door, dude. You're volunteering to clean up my bathroom. I love it. Thank you. It needs a good clean.
Oh man, that is so brilliant. But it is so true. And our brain, I always say, is such I always say it's the cock blocker. I hate to say it like
that's so funny.
But it
is
anything though. Yeah. It does with anything. And people need to understand that it is our greatest asset, but it's also our biggest obstacle. And once we can figure that out, our own brain out, and our own conditions and our own wiring that we have been, believing, or that we had taken from our ancestral, the whole ancestral thing, that's when we were like, Oh, you mean this really isn't mine to own, or I don't have to view things this way.
It doesn't have to be me. I could choose something different. I could believe something different. Yeah.
Oh my God. And that is just so empowering. And I love how you talk about the empowering choices and how it really is every single day. We do have that opportunity, and it's not always about giving the power away and taking our own power and building on our shame. It's all about just adjusting and tweaking and just moving forward anyway, but the biggest thing I love that you said, which was the result or the lesson, you're going to win either way, which is
either way. I've been talking about that a lot, and I have to remind myself, all right. That wasn't the outcome I expected, but I guess I needed this lesson. Like, let's go. And it really is that messy action. Like, let's go, let's do this.
Yes. And I love how you just said that it's not the outcome that I expected. Not the outcome that I expected. One thing that Dr. Tabitha had said years ago is he said, your psychology and your physiology will never be on the same page. And just so you know that your physiology doesn't give a damn about your vanity concerns. And when he said that statement, it was like brilliant, right? Because we
heard that. That's good.
Yeah, that's Dr. Jade, man. And I just absolutely love him. And that was really, really insightful and so helpful, because then it was like, oh my God, now I get it. My brain is saying, oh, now, there's all the shoulds and if I cut out bread, that equals this. And it's like, no, your physiology is saying, I'm still stressed the fuck out, and I'm not going to release weight yet. Not yet, but keep going,
Yep.
So anyway, it's amazing. Well, this was a lovely, beautiful conversation. I know that we could probably talk for at least 2 more hours. I mean, we had to stop our pre-recording conversation.
Yeah. I feel like we're on the same, wavelength though. We could talk. We'll do it again though. Off the podcast.
Absolutely. It was just so fun. And thank you for being so vulnerable and sharing and, just being you, and your story is amazing. And I want all of my friends and audience to follow you. And you can find Tabitha. I know she's on Facebook and Instagram, and I'm sure she has the website. We'll have all of that in the show notes. But if you would like to verbalize it, go right ahead.
Yeah, people probably Instagram might be the easiest, and it's Fit with Tab, FITWITHTAB, Fit with Tab on Instagram. Perfect. Or Tabitha Goldsmith, you can look up.
Awesome. I love it. All right, my friend, it was so great to have this conversation with you today, and we definitely have to have another. There is no question there. I love it.
We'll have to get together. We're in Michigan, so
there's no excuses. We have to. So it was so wonderful to have you, and I am so grateful for you, my friend. And we'll see you next time, guys. See you soon.
Bye.
Thank you so much for tuning in to today's episode. If you love what you heard, please be sure to share it with me by leaving a review. If you aren't already following me on social media, come find me on Facebook by searching Kelly Dunlap, or come join me in my Master Your Mindset and Metabolism Facebook group by going to kellydunlap.com/group. I cannot wait to connect with you on the next episode.